Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us here for this Retailers First initiative to really understand the need of technology and also rewarding the technical excellence that retailers have tried to or strive to achieve in their organizations in the last few years. Interestingly, when we were putting this event together, I decided to speak to a lot of retail fraternity to understand what was it about technology that they wanted to know the most. Invariably, I think 70% all across talking to them, I came across just two answers. One was how in the best way could we go, and perhaps also the cheapest way could we go online. And second was that I do not want to open more stores unless I'm profitable. I am not interested in a 300, 400 store getup. But as long as I have that one store I'm opening, it has to be profitable, and how can technology help me? And that was exactly the question that I raised to my panel when I asked them to join us over here today, that what could possibly technology bring to the table and how the integration could happen for retailers who were looking to achieve this as a foundation of their growth. So Anshu, you've got the hard work here for the next 45 minutes in which you would probably, along with the panel, really help us find out the answers which are so needed by the retail industry. So I hand it over to you.
I've been working on or focusing on that vertical for about 7 years. I took on this responsibility somewhere around 2006, early 2006. And at that point in time, handful of retailers. Retail was a big buzzword. We heard more about it on papers than we saw it on the action. Going back, retail was always there, right? One can always remember a Bata store where we would go down to buy the shoes, and that was frankly the only option available as we were students at that point in time. As we grew, there were these jeans, there were some imported options available, but handful of places and all that, then Shopper Stop happened. And as one grew, and I think India started becoming an area of focus from an investment standpoint, and this industry started to take shape, one realized that at this point in time where we sit now, we are spoiled for choice, right? Be it eating out, be it buying grocery, be it buying wine, liquor. So there is one end which is catering to getting the people off from the streets to the stores, to the other end which is providing gourmet solutions and the very, very high end in terms of luxury, be it for apparel or otherwise. The challenge now is the consumer has also moved on, and they now look at experiential benefits to come and be enabled to them at every touch point that they have, either with your store, which could be brick and mortar, or an online presence. Talk about his perspective of what he has seen from a global perspective, where he has seen the maturity curve had been there earlier, and there were some of us who kind of moved in and tried to adopt some of those learnings from there, so that we could jumpstart and not go through those 30 years of learning as we stand now. Over to you, Vineet.
Thanks, Anshu. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been fortunate enough to be in this industry for last about 17 years. So, I've seen in my little career, I've seen this industry move and follow to some extent the way international retailing is happening. In some extent, even step forwarding and moving ahead from the more mature markets. So, I'll restrict this discussion on two fronts. One is the e-retailing, which is the topic for today. And second is for retailers, how technology can improve and what is my perspective towards it. E-retailing sites, which have grown large, may not be that profitable, but highly efficient. Dell, for example. But the challenge is not this. The real challenge internationally and in India is totally different. And that is the consumer awareness. So, consumer, and when I went to store, I could on my smartphone, I could look at comparative sites. I could look at the prices. I could look at the schemes which are available. So that is consumer. So are we as a retailer stepped up to meet that challenge? Because this is the biggest challenge. Consumer is far more intelligent because he's instrumented. He has those instruments. He's connected. He's working on social media. He knows all, all feedbacks, what is positive and negative for each one of the brands. So are we stepped up both from processes, business processes and technology to meet that challenge? That's the biggest challenge today we have. So I think that's one part of it. Second part of it, what I will just touch is on the pure brick and play motor. I think all of us know the challenges that India faces is very different. So we have huge rentals to pay. The scalability is an issue. The growth is a bit of issue. We have skill sets. So I'll not go into those physical challenges. But the amount of money that gets justified, for every store to be put in technology is, there's a cap to it. And then how do we best drive that to ensure that the operational efficiencies are at least to the minimum critical level so that we are, if not profitable, we at least break even. So that's the second challenge. So what is technology doing in that space? So are we still looking at, legacy systems? Or are we still looking at ERPs of SAPs and Oracles, or are there other options? So I think that can be the second part of the discussions as we go on. So Anshu, I'll hand over to you for this.
Thanks. So Abhijit, if you'd like to add about the challenges you face, because what you represent is a very, very specialized offering to the consumer base, right? And the challenges that you have been facing in terms of getting your back-end infrastructure and the applications to cater to the demand from a brick and mortar perspective, and now more recently to an online.
Godrej Nature's Basket, as everyone knows, it's a rich gourmet world food cuisine chain. We focus on tier 1 and tier 2 cities with top A and A plus categories who are exposed to world cuisine basically. And with the exposure, they are a bit experimentative. They want to try a few things at home if possible. So we decided to cater them, to make them things available under one roof. And not only the products, we focus on the services. Means we have food specialists deputed at every store. So if someone wants some help in terms of world cuisine, a particular product, then recipe and other stuff, my team is there to guide them. So the concept of gourmet food chain, not restricted to product, but to services as well. And when I say we focus on the top class of the society, tech savviness comes along with it. So IT as a backbone for the chain, we had to be on top at all the time, right from the store opening till date. And we have to focus on the new technological enhancements which are coming in, and to help them to serve customer in such a way that smooth experience at a brick and mortar store is mandatory nowadays. Customer is becoming impatient. When I say that, don't mind me, but then if I go at a store and I have to wait in the queue at billing due to some IT or some master related issue for 10 or 20 seconds, you get irritated. So we have to ensure the smooth functioning of at the billing counter as well as all across the digital signages or whatsoever we talk of, including the swipe cards and other things in the market.
Yeah, thank you. So I now hand it to Puneet to basically address what his solution thoughts would be around the kind of challenges that Abhijit is facing now.
Here is an area where a CIO worked with the business and created a disruption in the way they were creating their formats to reach out to their end customers. They had a compelling problem, availability of real estate, the price of real estate. So they had to look out of the box to find out how is it that they could have reached out to their customers who were time compressed. For example, in Korea, these folks, when they enter the subway, they go through the entire process. I don't know if it's still successful or not, but I do believe it would work for a time-compressed consumer. When he is on the go, he gets to see what he can buy. He knows the promotion. He can see it. He just goes through the process, checks out, boards the subway. By the time he's at his home, you actually deliver the goods out. That's one example. The second example is, when you talk about in retail, you all face this problem of rentals being your very key driver of profitability. 15 to 20% of your costs will come from rentals itself. And there is a concept which your business talks about is called rental recovery. So let's take a advantage that most of the retailers in India enjoy. You have the endpoints, you have the touch points. And there is the other side of the equation, which means that there are folks like who are the automakers, who are the banks, who are looking out for reach and access points for their end products when they reach out to their consumers. So you have another advantage of being able to collaborate and co-share your infrastructure by using digital technologies. They can be like interactive mechanisms with which they just use a very small space out of your retail floor, but at the same time, that gives them a tremendous platform to reach out to a larger market. And in the process, what happens is the rentals that you pay, which are on OpEx today, they automatically start paying back to your organization as a payback. Now, I'll stop here for just these 2 points because my purpose of highlighting was that in the past, the way technology was viewed, that was the way the business would drive it. But the future is a lot about technology, and as CIOs, your role becomes even more imperative, or I would say even more useful for the business to drive their business objectives. Whether it's, let's say, for example, driving profitability out of the store, or maybe innovating on the formats in the way you reach out to your end consumers and sell your products.
That was an interesting context, and I kind of remember there were a couple of discussions that I've been having with CEOs. And if you kind of go back and look at an organization which has primarily been on a brick and mortar, and the movement, the fundamental shift that happens, some call it e-commerce, some call it digital, to that channel is primarily been the turnaround and the decision-making ability of that organization to move in that space. The appreciation and the challenges that one would need to tinker around from a back-end organization perspective to support that new channel, and the kind of growth that one would reasonably expect that incremental channel to provide. Now, these are aspects, and I have been talking to multiple people, and the kind of perspective that gives back or comes back is, I need something like Facebook, simple, easy to use, keep the complications at the back end. And that basically throws a lot of challenge to the solution providers, right? At the cost, which are in line with the kind of margins the retailers work at. Now, does a site should cost equivalent to the investment that is required to set up a store? Or there are other ways of measuring what kind of returns on asset or investment that one should look at? Any thoughts from your end?
See, I can only speak for the retailers per se. But you know, what I want to know and what I'm seeing of technology, I can understand that technology very clearly is going to lead retail from here on. Whether it is digital retail or whether in-store retail technology, what I would like to really know from all of you is that what do you think the CIO should concentrate on? You know, how he should integrate himself. The way I have seen it, he's been this one lonely guy sitting in a one lonely cabin trying to do his bit in retail. It's now come down to a point where suddenly the CIO is going to be almost like, he's going to be overloaded in the organization. With him, an expectation coming, which is probably more than what a CEO was expected to do in the organization in some sense. So what exactly should be his first focus in terms of coming to people like yourself and asking you to do? That is what I think most of us out here at retail would try to understand, because it is imperative that whether it's a small and medium retailer or a large retailer, a qualified CIO is a must. You cannot do without him. A CEO cannot run the technology show for an organization. So what do you expect him to do first in the retail organization?
Okay, I have seen CIOs who have been CFOs holding that position, who have been supply chain heads moving into that role, which basically goes to point out that yes, they were very intelligent and people who have done good things in their career. It also talks about the way organizations have started to look at that role, right? So they understand the kind of capability it requires. It is not about technology, because there are loads of service providers who can simplify things for them. It is about return on assets, it's about return on investments, and it's about appreciation of somebody not just walking in with a 5 crore or a $2 million investment and saying, okay, you want to do this, this is what it costs, and that's it. So gone are the days when people would look at investments like you have those classical manufacturing industries, or here everybody realizes the margin pressures, everybody realizes the challenges. You have Nature's Basket, which caters within the grocery framework to a very, very gourmet kind of experience. You have Lamash. You also have this Reliance Retail, Reliance Fresh, which caters on the very other end of the spectrum. So given these challenges, I think one needs to find out it is just not a good POS system. The POS system needs to talk to the merchandising system at the back end. The merchandising system has to have enough capability for it to give you an integrated view, consolidated view across all your channels. If you are having multiple channels to cater to, it should have the intelligence to talk to your key partners. So capabilities such as that at the back end, right? Be it from a brick and mortar perspective or an online. Online is about setting up, and I've also been fortunate to talk about standalone online retailers as well, and the challenges that they face, and especially with startups. And believe you me, these guys are far more attuned to take up challenges and go ahead and outsource rather than go via very, very traditional thing of owning, setting up the data center and going about it. They are far more flexible because frankly, they are low on options and they take whatever comes up. They rather focus on the core business that they are trying to set up rather than worry about the inherent. So somewhere where talent is a challenge, where we talk about a CIO who understands all of this, people are looking at CIOs for hire as well, where very, very specialized people are now servicing 2 or 3 industries. People who have been either from that industry or consultants who have moved on and giving that advice to various people as to what one should go for. So it's a churn that we see. I think it's going to settle at some point in time somewhere, but this is the churn time. I think this is exciting. So with this, I think I hand it over to Vineet.